Welcome back. I'm Chris McLeod with Edmonton Global. We're here at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention, sitting inside the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub exhibit. And if you were joining us just over the last 5-6 minutes, you saw this amazing video about the future of the Edmonton region and the build out of our hydrogen economy from today to 2050. Now, we did a lot of work on that. There's information from a base case, there's information from a whole bunch of sources that have been baked into that. But to turn all that data into something I think is pretty magical was RUNWITHIT Synthetics. And we've got Myrna Bittner here, who's the founder and co-CEO. Myrna, first of all, thanks so much for that video. It is awesome.
I'm really glad you like it. We liked it too. Really fascinating to meet all of the people who are involved and engaged in accelerating hydrogen in the area, and wonderful to do some work in Canada. It was one of the kickoff projects that we are doing in Canada. Most of our work is international.
Yeah, and you know, I could spend the whole time just talking about that video and kind of how we built that and what's happening. But let's start by talking really about you and the team at RUNWITHIT Synthetics. So, you know, you just mentioned that most of the work you're doing is international. Can you just kind of explain what it is that you guys do?
Okay. I'll start back, but not really back at the beginning, because it's been a long running start, decades of kind of building a technology and a capability. But our company started 8 years ago, and we started by recognizing that the world was becoming really complex, and that these systems were kind of outstripping people's ability to contend with the realities that they were going to face until they faced them. And then it was almost too late. So there was a lot of firefighting and a lot of mistakes and inefficiencies. And so we built the capability to build synthetic realities. And these synthetic realities, we could focus on making them as realistic as possible with human behavior and activity and policy and environment and connected systems. And it wasn't very long until we were asked, well, can you do this in a city? And can you characterize a city or a region? And that started in 2019. And then in earnest, we have been building cities, which are actually systems of systems and regions, and dialing forward the future of those cities so people can prepare or mitigate or de-risk or even pursue really innovative opportunities and understand in a sandbox environment with the data that they need to support their decisions today, what the impacts are going to be tomorrow.
There is so much there to ask about. And I'm going to try to drill in a little bit, but you know, you're going to lose me quick if we get too much into the detail. So when you talk about building virtual environments, again, I know just from our experience with the videos and some of the work you've done for us, but for someone who's never seen your work, like they might be thinking, oh, like, you know, Second Life or video game kind of things. It is not that at all. It's really grounded in, I think, the reality of the systems that exist. Can you just maybe explain that a bit so that people have the right mental image?
Correct. So we really look for incorporating as much information as is available, and it's kind of a convergence idea. So we bring data and expertise and geospatial information and images and an understanding of how a city is built and its critical infrastructure and how that operates, and then we, where part of our special sauce is that we are enabled by our technology to synthesize the population. So an actual SimCity type, living, reactive, responsive, intelligent population that is accurate for a region, but never identified. And so that is part of what enables us to then dial forward new energy behaviors, transportation choices, growth, density, how much water people consume today and maybe 10 years from now. But it also enables us to play forward the impact of policy. So policy change and incentives, our population can have psychographics that are accurate and based in research and can be quantified. And we can survey our populations as well. So that's one of the fun things that we do is when we dial forward these scenarios, and we've done some pretty challenging scenarios, such as disaster scenarios. We can actually survey our population to find out how they're feeling and what they're thinking and why they're making the choices that they have in ways that current technologies and current survey and current surveillance cannot capture. So it enables us to play forward with the future and really understand in a quantified way what the impact of our choices are going to be.
Yeah, just fascinating. I'm sure there's urban planners who are listening to this or have heard you talk whose minds are blown as you talk about what's actually possible.
We are working with some here in the Edmonton region as well. So
wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe let's talk then about, where are some of the places you're doing work?
So we had a really interesting experience because when we started in cities, we started at the top of the Electric Power Research Institute in the U.S. And that was our second major city, was Phoenix in the U.S., doing a dual disaster. And then during COVID, it really liberated our ability to reach around the world without having to travel because we were a small and growing team. So a lot more time on our hands. So we got involved in Kuala Lumpur, for example, with the Toyota Mobility Foundation, really characterizing how they were going to meet their 2040 targets, which involved decarbonization, but also involved really strenuous targets about SDG and economic access and accessibility and inclusivity. And so we did mobility models of the city of Kuala Lumpur last year as well. Then we've done some work in Europe, so Switzerland and Germany, and a lot of work in the United States. And we're starting in LATAM.
Okay. Well, I know there's been a couple times where I've reached out to you, to ask for, advice or connections or project updates.
Yeah.
I think we've been on calls from, or you've been on call. You've been in like California, Washington, I think Portugal, Grenoble, France. It seems like every time we talk, you're someplace else. So I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Yeah. Last couple of weeks was Houston and Denver and Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Which Washington, D.C. was one of our the pinnacle achievements for our team lately. It was a huge environment that we did, synthesizing the Eastern Coast as well as Washington, D.C. for 2 handfuls worth of government agencies in the U.S., as well as the grid operators. And what they're trying to figure out how to contend with is some really severe solar weather. And so they were using a brand new launched product that we have, which is a synthetic tabletop. And they were using that to play forward scenarios where they had input all of their expert data and models, and they were wanting to understand the future of the grid and whether or not they could mitigate it, and with what data and information and what processes they would need to save us all.
Yeah. So, just trying to comprehend that. The data sets must be gigantic then, if you're looking at all those different pieces.
They are, and that's again one of the things that we have developed with our technology is the ability to ingest those data sets, integrate them, connect them, augment them with the synthetic data, so the data that's missing from scenarios that haven't happened yet, or that's missing just in general because it hasn't been collected, or that's missing because it's hidden behind regulatory doors and process. And so we augment that, and then we have the ability to visualize it in very efficient ways and very powerful ways.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So how do you do that then? You must be using AI or machine learning or something to kind of dive into that data.
We do. We have a really deep tech stack that we have been working on for a few decades now that's finally kind of reaching its glory. Part of it comes from a neural net and 3D visualization research company that we had in the 90s. So it's not just fresh out of the box. But yes, there's a lot of artificial intelligence. We work towards making that all explainable because when we invite people into the room to examine some of these really critical issues and the future of a city and the future of a hydrogen, for example, in the Edmonton region, we really want them to have the confidence in how we have created models to generate missing data, how we have integrated models of others and of experts. So we have focused always on making that really explainable. But yes, there is some really interesting AI back there.
Yeah. Okay. I think years ago I did a little bit of work in disaster things, and they're looking at modeling. It was mostly maps with highlighters showing where danger might be.
Yes.
This is way more advanced than that.
This is, yes. And I think one of the interesting things is about why we're here today for hydrogen and the changing planet that we exist in is that all of these technologies and these advancements in sustainability also offer the opportunity to partner those advancements with resilience. And when we look at these disaster scenarios, it's really important that we characterize and understand how these new technologies can add to that and contribute to our resilience as a society.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I mean, we talk a lot about the role of talent in investment attraction.
Yes.
And we've got some real, especially the University of Alberta, but we've got 8 universities, colleges, polytechnics, somewhere between 120 and 140,000 students, which is almost 10% of the total population of this region, which is pretty amazing. But the U of A, their computer science department is the best in the world, top 1, top 2. Their artificial intelligence research is consistently number 1, number 2, for 25 years. Is that talent pool really what's also helping your company just grow and thrive?
Yes, and more than just that talent pool, because we hire a really diverse group of experts. So we have engineers in civil, environmental, mechanical, electrical, comp-sci, human behavior specialists, 3D animation, and I think this is all part of the design of companies in the future too. Is having that diverse talent pool. It gives us opportunities. I think in the U of A is also renowned, because of being in an energy society as well, and an energy-focused area of the world, in producing that engineering talent, which we absolutely love and take advantage of. Which brings me also to Edmonton Hydrogen and the work we're doing.
Yeah, eventually we have to talk about hydrogen.
Eventually we do, yes. And the work we're doing in the workforce and modeling the workforce and the future of that workforce also heavily relies on that talent pool.
Yeah.
And in a few ways is just spectacular for Edmonton and the future of Edmonton. The opportunities it offers, that talent pool for the young workforce, who in 2040 is going to be predominantly starting their careers in hydrogen and then advancing in hydrogen. The number of clean tech jobs and growth in clean tech jobs that our post-secondary institutes are aligning with, their programs with. In 2040, I think we were estimating there was going to be about 49,000 clean tech jobs versus, traditional energy jobs, which would be about 17,000. So
wow.
those rates are going to really outstrip, I think, traditional jobs, and we're really well positioned with the talent generators that we have in our post-secondaries here to meet that need and that demand.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm glad you pulled us into hydrogen, because I could ask probably 1,000 questions about what you guys are up to. Can you maybe just talk about, again, we've talked about the talent piece that you're undertaking on behalf of the whole region. What's some of the other work you're doing around synthetic modeling in hydrogen? I know talent's one. There's other areas, though, too.
Yeah, so we were looking at workforce, we were looking at economy, we are looking at the growth of Edmonton and what that means, because as hydrogen is kind of being infused into our city, there's also this expansion or this growth of the population, and what does that mean with how we can look forward and prepare and attract and retain those clean tech workers. Some of the other work we're doing around hydrogen modeling is around the transportation sector. So really understanding, who and how and when adoption will happen. It's not always a rational economic choice when these big disruptive changes are happening. So part of the psychographic work that we do and being able to characterize people and how they perceive risk, we can also connect that with the labor force that's available, and have we prepared in that way the people to maintain those trucks, the people that have the knowledge to drive those trucks, the infrastructure and the people who work at those fueling stations. That all works into that adoption risk of the people who are looking at planning their fleets, and that more rational economic choice of, have we incented hydrogen to the price where it makes sense for them.
Yeah. And again, you're a company that, you've had other companies, now you've got RUNWITHIT Synthetics.
Yes.
You've already won a ton of awards, though, despite being only, 3 years old. So awards and recognition, can you give just a little sample of what's been happening?
Oh, wow. One of our favorite awards was the Most Edmonton Company last year, which was really designed to highlight a company that had impact and was also, highly focused on diversity and equity and inclusivity. We're a women-led company. We have a high percentage of women as a part of our team, even though we are a deep tech company. And we're also a certified Aboriginal business through my co-founder. And that's really important for us to highlight, the art of the possible. Second, well, unless I'm on an international stage, we won the global call of the United Nations for the Industry Development Organization for decarbonizing growing urban environments, which recognize the work that we've done around the world in cities as they're planning decarbonized mobility and transportation, and also recognize the work that we have done towards SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals in those cities. Taiwan's Top Technology Gold Medal Award was a real surprise, but a very welcome surprise. We've been co-winners with the Electric Power Research Institute into the AF Works Innovation Showcase. And I'm probably missing
I'm
about
sure you're
20
missing
others. But 2021 was a great year for us.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask that question first, because the next question is, companies that are in the startup, scale-up stage are always looking for capital. We've got investors here from all over the world, many of them coming looking for joint ventures, for all kinds of partnerships, looking for companies to do work on projects. Are you looking for investment funding? Where are you at?
Yeah, so we've had an interesting kind of trajectory happen in probably the last 6 months. So we've already booked more revenue in 2022 than well over the amount that we had in 2021, and we've always been a profitable revenue-funded company, which is also an interesting kind of oddity for AI companies. But that has kind of pushed us into making a choice, and so we've got a data room that we're preparing. I presented at the National Renewable Energy Labs Industry Growth Forum 2 weeks ago. I was in Denver, and we're preparing to open a round. We can be careful about the partners that we choose for that round, but there's so much that we're leaving on the floor that I think investment would help us grow into, and that's coming.
Yeah, well,
yes.
I know from our perspective, we've been blown away by the work you're doing. Every time we show it off, we've got more people asking, how do we be part of this? How do we help build out the models around our community? And I know that that's happening in other communities around the world. So you probably won't be able to grow fast enough, would be my bet.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, again, thanks so much. I know you're up for an award tonight, speaking of awards.
Yes.
So best of luck with that.
Oh, thank you.
We all have our fingers crossed that you're going to win yet one more. And then the other thing I want to ask you, we're here again at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. It's the first time we've ever hosted this.
Yes.
Already it's the largest hydrogen convention in North America. We've got a goal to build it into the largest hydrogen convention in the world within 5 years. We're hoping to have about 50,000 people here in 5 years. We're going to need a bigger facility, but we're planning on having it here. Just wondering, if we brought you back in 5 years to do the same kind of a talk, do you have a sense where you're going to be?
That's a really fascinating question, and I see a lot of big blank walls around. So we're doing part of what we've developed is a 3D immersive tabletop. That's what we launched in Washington, and Washington D.C. got to see itself experiencing a coronal mass ejection event. So I would really like to see a 3D immersive Edmonton
something more
region.
positive than disasters.
Yes, transitioning into so that people can actually walk through it, step in it, look at it, interact with the data, and understand the power of information and bringing science and techno-economic modeling and hydrogen and supply chains and people out of reports that sit on people's desks and into a living, understandable reality. So that's where I want this could be big enough, this hall, for that.
Okay. Wow, one hall for just your exhibit.
Sure.
Let's do that. Okay, so Myrna,
it.
thanks so much for being part of this. Again, I've said it probably 8 times, but we're just huge fans of the work that you're doing, and we look for good partners to work with, and you guys are at the top of the list. You're really amazing.
Well, thank you.
Both you and the whole team.
Thank you to Edmonton Global for giving us this opportunity. It's been amazing.
Well, it's our pleasure. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more. Next one, we're talking about global collaborations and innovation, and we've got the European Canada Commission on Innovation as well as Innovate Norway. So we'll see you in a few minutes.